Hey guys, this is my second video about my 40th goddamn try to get this, I guess, the intro correct. But basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just provide a spiritual component to the current event news. I know a lot of people get the news and just hear about, what had happened, and uh, there's always like a deeper aspect to all of that, and I like to try to tie that in with what I know from the spiritual realms, and give a little bit different perspective. And it's pretty much what I'm doing here. One thing that I had brought up last video that I kind of just breezed right by, and maybe not everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about, was the concept of cycles of time. We travel around a galactic central sun. It takes us 75,000 Earth years to get to the same point we're at today. And basically, we go around different energies in space at the exact same point, because the energies in space are pretty consistent. And that has an effect on the consciousness of people of the planet that they're on, wherever they're at. Every time, picture it like a clock. So if we're at 6 o'clock right now, 75,000 years later, right at 6 o'clock, the same thing happens where there's an upliftment in consciousness, and corruption will die again, and not the exact same way it's doing it today, but the same set of stuff ends up happening, and that's what I mean by the cycles of time. There's subcycles, excuse me, there's subcycles, and then there's subcycles of subcycles. Supposedly the one of the major subcycles is 25,000 year segments. There's three of them, and we're supposedly ending our second 25,000 year subcycle here. The astrological, it's a tough word for me to say, the astrological alignments um, have a lot to do with, I guess, these cycles of time too. Like when certain planets line up astrologically, it lets different energies come through, which has the same effect on the inhabitants of whatever planet they're affecting on. And that's why I mentioned December 21st as being a big date, because Jupiter and Saturn are right on top of each other, and that only happens, once every couple thousand of years. And actually, it was said, I didn't really go to verify this, but it said there was three regimes in history that have fallen when that exact alignment happened. So I got big hopes for December 21st, and if it doesn't happen that day, it's going to happen right around that time, obviously. Um, but yeah, so I kind of think December 21st is going to be a big day. Hope that cleared up a little bit if you didn't know what I meant by cycles of time. Um, One of the biggest things that people can do, everyone, and I wonder this myself, but I always learn, well, now that I'm awake, what can I do? What can I do to help, basically help our side? And the biggest thing you can do to help our side is to get other people awake. It's not like you have to awaken 1,000 people, but if you just work on one, and if the person that you're trying to work on doesn't want to listen to you, or doesn't believe you, you can just go on to the next one. If you just set the goal at one, you're always in the game, because you could always just switch to a different one or whatnot. But that is the biggest thing, and behind that movement, the 17th letter movement, that's basically what they were put there to do, and they accomplished that. They accomplished it very good. So I got nothing but praise from them, and it certainly was effective. I had known all the information that they were giving out 8 years ago, and they started giving it out 3 years ago. I think in 2017 is when they first started to give info out. And I was surprised that something that public and that had that far of a reach was able to start giving information out. So I knew something was up, because they were saying stuff that aligned completely with the other stuff that I had known. And I guess that ties into the next message, where there seems to be a lot of fighting within the light community, or the light worker community. And that's not necessarily where people need to put their energy in, trying to figure out if this guy's a fraud or that guy's a fraud. Instead of looking exactly at the info, they say, like, look at what they're accomplishing either way. Like, one name that comes to mind is the Austin Steinberg guy. He claims he's Q. Whether he's Q or not Q, it really doesn't matter. If you look at the info that he's given, he shined a light on a lot of stuff that was happening behind the scenes. So, I certainly have no hate for him, and I don't think anyone else should. And then there's a chance he is who he says he is, or at least he's a part of who he says he is. But just by him giving info that wasn't already out there, and he gives good perspectives on events that had happened, and is able to bring a lot of logic to certain stuff that's happened in the last couple of years. Like, you can't deny that, he's shined a light on a lot of stuff. So it doesn't matter if he is who he says he is, or if he's somebody else, or even if he's disinfo from, you know, from the left side. It doesn't matter because he gave info that woke people up, and that is, that is the battle. The more people that are awake, that's the less energy behind the ideas and their ability to create reality. Since reality comes from the majority thought of humanity. Basically they're losing the game even when they put in a disinfo figure. So I don't think he is disinfo. I think he's a little bit different than what he says he is, but he's certainly effective, and the information that he gives has been completely enlightening. And that goes a lot into the other stuff, like the whole flat Earth movement. Who cares if the Earth's flat or not flat? Somebody that was completely asleep all of a sudden gets into, whether the earth is flat or not. Well, they're looking into other stuff too, and then they're waking themselves up. So I kind of laugh at a lot of this disinfo stuff, served to try to get people off the right path and not have them figure out certain things. Well, it served to wake them up. So it ended up being a good thing. And that's just part of the battle that they're facing. If they didn't have any things in place to try to stop people from waking up, a lot more would be waking up at this point. Um, but they did the best they could. I mean, it's a battle out there. So basically, it's a battle, like I said last video, that we're winning. Or we're definitely winning, and you're seeing the result of that right now. One of the reasons that things are super intense right now is because, as I mentioned, I had woken up 8 years ago, 9 years ago, back in 2012. I think I keep bringing that up. I'm sorry, but a lot of information and events that were said to happen were just basically done in secret, reported on incorrectly. So it was something that it actually wasn't, or it just didn't happen, and the can was kicked down the road. A lot of times the energies are intensifying basically because there's no more kicking the can down the road. When this election happened, they had a backwall date of January 20th. And so you're seeing all the stuff that they need to do. And it's a massive amount of stuff that they need to do. It's all happening within, the next 2 or 3 weeks. That's why I said last video that stuff is definitely going to be crazy out there. They're piling what probably should be spread out, in about 4 or 5 years. They're literally piled in within 2 weeks. Last video, I had mentioned that you have to set the energies into public consciousness in order for events to happen. And today is December 14th, and yet again you have everybody on Trump's side calling for this insurrection act. They're calling for pursuing Article 28 or 14 or something. Basically, they just want to arrest everybody. So the momentum for that and the energy behind that is definitely growing. You could tell that it's grown so much that it's worrying the left, because there was a couple mainstream articles or mainstream MSN news stories about that they're wondering if Trump is going to declare martial law and arrest 50,000 people. And that's not only giving the left and the asleep people a heads up, but it's basically trying to set that event in their mind to try to gain the energies to stop the event that is going to take place when that happens. And the only problem is the people on the right are calling for it, and the people on the left are trying not to call for it. But there's a lot more people on the right than there is on the left. You can kind of look at the election, but Trump seemed to win that 2-1. If it was truly an 80 million versus 80 million vote, the martial law thing may not happen, but there's literally a 2-1 advantage. So even if the left got every single person behind them saying that they don't want martial law, we still have double the amount of people calling for it. So it's basically the majority thought of humanity is what determines where reality goes, and we have the upper hand because it all ties back into again, where we're going through in space is just such a high frequency zone, and within the higher frequency, truth always wins out. So, they're just battling, just battling where we're going in space. It's like an impossibility. Um, I think I felt for the first time today that there was little specks of light coming out in the MSN or mainstream news, and one of the things that made me smile was that exact broadcasting on, oh my God, Trump might do this. Well, yeah, no shit. What do you expect? You basically put about 40 million votes in onto the other side. I mean, obviously, something was going to happen, especially with the fact that that many people in the world were awake to it. So you're just basically seeing the end result of everything that they've done. I probably should have led with this, but I'm kind of disorganized and kind of just talk about stuff as it's written down on my paper. And this one was about 5 or 6 things down there, but a little bit more about me. I'm an empath. I'm an intuitive empath. As I had mentioned yesterday, I've opened up a clear connection with my guides. Um, but having that empathic mindset, it's I don't know it any other way. So um, it's just basically for anyone that's wondering what that's like is you immediately see everything from another person's point of view and not so much your own. And it helps with your emotional IQ, but a lot of times that makes me a little bit of the off one in the group, just because I'm so quirky, I guess. Like I don't know, but basically that allows your analytical skills to come into play quite a bit. Because when something happens and there's like 4 or 5 people there, and you understand the personality of each 4 or 5 different person, you see immediately how each person sees the event, and intuitively you're able to figure out the next best thing to say or the next best course of action that's going to be good for the group, and that's all tied into how empaths think of stuff. I think my intuition has been helped out quite a bit through the last few years, and that's with the help of my guides. And um, when I woken up back in 2012, I don't know if I was artificially increased in that area or whatnot, but I seem to be pretty in tune with a lot of things that I go through, and it's been interesting, and obviously I don't know it any other way, but it's definitely an experience. And I look at everything in terms of energy, and you'll hear me kind of say that a lot, and that's what I meant. What I said yesterday about the energies behind the Insurrection Act are growing. I think I mentioned it already in this video that it was everybody on Trump's side had mentioned it again, and then also the MSN is trying to do an anti-insurrection act, trying to get their people behind it so that event doesn't happen. But unfortunately, they're outnumbered by quite a bit. And also, this isn't just a USA thing. This is what's happening in it's a world takedown. It's not just the regime in the USA that's going to die. It's pretty much all around the world. You don't hear too much, but about the the alliance governments in different European countries or whatnot. But the alliance isn't just people on Earth. It's basically within the ET realms, and then also within the spiritual realms. And over the last 30, 40 years, they have infiltrated into that and gotten their people in there. So and they've grown their side, and that's why this movement's so big. Because basically behind the scenes, we've gotten a lot of people on our side in there. The one thing that scares me a little bit is that other side is so big too and so powerful too, and they're willing to kill people. Um, if you look at Georgia, where I live, I think it's Brad Raffensperger and crap, I forgot the governor's name, but as soon as he said he was going to audit the votes or do a signature check on the votes, I think 2 people, either close to him or within his campaign died. Now the left is willing to go to that level. What do you expect? Who do you expect that guy to go for? Just recently, I think today, um, Raffensperger had actually called for an audit or a signature audit within the county, kind of going against how he's been the last month. What do you think happened to him? I mean, it's pretty obvious that he had gotten picked up and threatened with treason from the alliance side, and that's why he has to kind of come more towards this side. He's in a tough spot. He deserves to be in a tough spot. He sold out to basically his people that blackmailed him from China. He's selling out to them, but it's hurting the U.S. And now he's seen a result of his action. He's seen his karma being played out. Unfortunately, he's a public figure, so he's seen it getting played out in everybody's eyes. You're gonna start seeing people one by one switching from the left and kind of doing things more towards the right because what they're being threatened with, what they're doing, what everybody's doing is actually treason. And pretty sure the number one penalty, worst penalty you could get from treason is the death penalty. And the number two penalty you could get is also the death penalty. Like to be to be charged with treason is no small thing. I think so. When that reality sets in, you're going to see a lot of this change around. I think the one and final thing that is going to be taken care of, and the last thing that's going to be taken care of, is going to be the media. That would be a glorious day, but I think that the media basically will try to play off this Trump Biden thing, like even when it's obvious that Trump's going to end up being back in there, or if he's not, but just at least Biden's not going to be in there. They're going to still put it out there that Biden's in just to kind of get every little bit out of their crowd that they can till the final end. But it's only going to be when the media is taken over that the truth really gets to pervade. And I think that there's a mass waking up on the left-hand side. A couple other interesting things. I read Benjamin Fulford's articles that come out every Monday, and he had mentioned something that about, well, how is Trump going to fund this eventual battle that he's going to get into when he pulls the Insurrection Act. This kind of puts into play something that he did at the beginning of COVID, where he actually took over the Federal Reserve and made it part of the Treasury. That's why you saw part of the stimulus package actually go directly to the people, small businesses, rather than just fund the corporations. And he is eventually going to use the Treasury to pay for this whole battle that he's going into. And behind that, and I didn't see that at the time. I didn't see that he took over the Treasury to be able to fund this war that he's going to wage. And then also behind that, there's the White Dragon Society out of the Asian countries that are going to help him out as long as he has a true intention to help out humanity, and everybody's back is against the wall where the alternative is not good for the entire world. So Trump's going to probably see to them, and part of the Insurrection Act gets the assets out of everybody that is actually guilty of treason. I'm sure part of that money is going to go into paying off the forces, how he has to do it. But wars are expensive. There's major players and major families that are behind both sides of the war. They're funding both sides, so they really doesn't care how the outcome is. But that's not the reality of this war, because the outcome, if the alliance wins, is pretty much the end of the families. And I guess the left and the other side is so big, and they've been running the world not just for tens of 20s of years or hundreds of years. This goes all the way back to the original reptilian takeover of the planet. 26,000 years to 300,000 years ago, and that's basically how long they've had to perfect the system. Just to give you, I guess, a little ET info, when Draco forces end up taking over a planet, the first thing they do is they try to put a money system in, which ultimately causes a class system. They'll put in a government, they'll put in religion, so people will get the spiritual truths, but it's twisted to the point where it's still controllable. I don't know if I lose anybody there to tell people, that's the goal of religion, but you could get the good stuff out of religion without the bad stuff, and that's kind of called spirituality. They didn't want people going within and learning all this stuff and becoming true spiritual beings, so they put in a religious class there. I'm not saying any religion is bad or good, just in the end, that is a way to allow a person to gain some spiritual truths, but also remain controllable, through the fear factor of like, oh my God, I'm going to go to heaven or hell, or there's always got to be something to be fearful over. A true spiritual awakening is usually an awakening that you have within yourself. Other vaccine news that I heard that I think was interesting. I remember when the COVID first came out, and there was the whole HCQ saga, where it's helpful, but the main pharma companies and the main pharma media didn't want to get behind it. And one of the reasons that I heard that was going on was, the pharma companies are in trouble as far as bringing in revenue and everything, and they're using these vaccines to bring in a massive amount of revenue. And to get a vaccine out within less than 5 years, they have to get this emergency use authorization signed, and you can't do that unless there's no available remedy. So if you have a remedy such as an HCQ or remdesivir or Regeneron or whatever that's knocking out the so-called virus, that they'll never get this emergency use thing to the vaccination. Now, if you were to ask me why is Trump basically supporting vaccination when he seems to be going after the people that are proponents of vaccinations, I don't really have an answer. Everything will be answered in time. I'm sure there's a little something behind it, whether he's backed up against a wall or, the vaccines are covers for getting troop movements out there. Something's up. He's done too much to awaken people, and he's obviously on our side. I don't think he's intentionally spreading anything that's going to be unhealthy for the population. So that's remains to be seen. I keep my mind open. I think he was either backed up against the wall or it is actual cover for bringing the troops everywhere within the United States. So that's about it for the second video. I know it's kind of a little less on the current events and just kind of more overall concepts. I'm not sure how that will do, but anyway, thanks for watching. If not the first, both videos. If you had any questions that you wanted me to take a shot at answering, feel free to just email myself or put them in the comments below. But other than that, everything's been pretty positive so far, so I appreciate that. And thanks again. So see you guys later.